Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 304. Greta,
John,
the Rings of Power is upon us.
it's upon us.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I'm wearing all of them right now. In this episode, we're going to be discussing episode 1 of the Rings of Power, The Shadow of the Past. Came out yesterday on the old Amazon Prime, and we watched it. You fell asleep last night when we were trying to watch it. And that's not a commentary. That's not Greta's commentary on the episode. That's just the fact that she fell asleep.
That's just Greta being lame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tired.
Well, to your credit, you're not lame often. So
Yeah, I'm allowed to be lame now and then.
You're allowed to be lame now and then.
I just picked a really bad time to be lame. But it's okay because I rewatched it just like a couple minutes ago. So it's fresh in my brain.
Fresh in the brain. Mm-hmm. Well, before we get started, we'd like to give a double up air five to our patrons. Get those hands up there, patrons. 3, 2, 1. Whoopsh, boom.
Nice.
Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, John R., Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien, Jacob Lockham, John H., and Scotchy Bobo. And a shout out to our newest patron, Carol W., who made an annual pledge. Thank you, Carol.
That is awesome. Yeah,
Very
thank
much
you.
appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Hey, become a patron by visiting patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Your financial support helps the Tolkien Road to keep on evering on and land you some cool perks along the way. Learn more at patreon.com/TolkienRoad. YouTube, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what's on your mind in the comments below. We're going to have lots more to say about the Rings of Power over the next few weeks, next few months, so click that notification bell as well to stay up to speed on all of it, right? So we're going to have lots to say. We're going to be reviewing every episode and kind of giving a reaction to every episode, and then we'll probably be talking about how, different aspects of the show, in different videos, just along the way. For those of you who are maybe finding us for the first time, this is, we've been at this with the Tolkien Road for over 7 years, going all the way back to 2015. We're about to finish our second read through of the Silmarillion, and so you can find a whole lot about the Silmarillion, Lord of the Rings, all kinds of different aspects of Tolkien's lore. This is just all about Tolkien on this channel, the background of what he has to say. So, you want to subscribe to this channel. We're going to be talking a lot about this show because obviously it's a big deal in the world of Tolkiendom. Mm-hmm. My big thing, what would Tolkien think? That's kind of how I tend to want to view all of these things. So, Greta?
WWTT?
Yep. Hit that subscribe button.
WWTT.
Yeah,
What
WWTT.
Tolkien think?
Yeah, if you're going to put it on a bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we should.
All right. Let's talk about episode 1 of the Rings of Power. Greta, you ready to do it?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's jump on in.
So, Greta, I think you're aware of my starting perspective.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned, what would Tolkien think? That's the big thing I've been interested in, and how I kind of have been saying for a while I'm going to judge, judge the execution of this show, judge all aspects of this show, and in the process of that, I've been trying to do my best to educate myself on those sorts of things. Really looking into anything Tolkien ever said about adaptations of his works and that sort of thing. And, to be quite honest, I posted on Twitter yesterday before I watched the first episode. I was like, a year ago when that first big image came out that had the 2 trees of Valinor in the background and everything. I was like, a year ago, I was super psyched about this show. And over the course of the last year, yesterday, I was like, I guess I should watch it. I'm just like, that's such a bummer. It was such a bummer. And I think a lot of that is because I've been just partly it's because of reading some of the things that I've read about their approach to the show. And that's kind of, that's kind of taken my enthusiasm, slowly caused my enthusiasm to go down and down. There's something about the constant marketing effort also that just kind of has worn on me at least. Mm-hmm. It's had the reverse effect of anti-hype for me. But the biggest thing that kind of caused my enthusiasm for this show to take a nosedive over the course of the last year is the fact that they were going to be doing this timeline compression.
Right.
And for some people know where I'm coming from. Others maybe are like, what's the big deal? But, I look at this and I know, right, that they had the appendices for, the Lord of the Rings as kind of a basis for building this show. And here in Appendix B, we're talking about the Second Age is a over 3,000 year time period. And as I've talked about on this show before, the time, the super long time frame of the Middle Earth Legendarium is one of the things that appeals to me so much about this, because it gives this impression of just this incredible depth, right, to these stories, to the stories that Tolkien told us, and I just got the sense that compressing the timeline is not something that Tolkien would have been okay with. Of course, it turns out that he pretty much said that, right? He pretty much said that in some of his letters when he was working on some possible film adaptations, and he essentially said, you don't need to compress the timeline. Now, he was talking about Lord of the Rings, but he was just talking about even a much shorter time frame, and he was saying you don't need to compress it, right? And also expressing his annoyance at other things that people who wanted to adapt his books wanted to do, and kind of the liberties they wanted to take with his works. So to me, that's been the thing that's caused my expectations to go way down, and even to get me to the point where I was just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll watch it. I guess I need to watch it. But at the end of the day, look, I know it's marketing, and so I wanted to give the show a fair shot. I really did. I wanted to go into it and be like, okay, I'm not going to I don't make a channel about Tolkien to just to gripe and complain. I make a channel about Tolkien to educate about Tolkien, to go deep into what he thought and all of his works. And so I wanted to take this seriously. These people put a lot of time and effort into making this series, and I wanted to take it, seriously and give it a fair shot. Mm-hmm. So,
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to say anything about where your starting perspective, Greta, or add anything?
Yeah, I think basically just what I shared with you, was that I mean, despite having been your co-host for like the last 7 years, I don't know Tolkien's lore in as much detail as you do. So I'm not gonna be able to pick up on like all the things that might be wrong, right? Like I won't know, oh, this person didn't live during this time. Oh, I didn't know. Or, like the timeline stuff, like in my head, I understand why it's not a good thing, just in general.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's going to impact my enjoyment or lack of enjoyment. Because I just don't really know any better.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, that's fair.
So I feel like I'm kind of coming at it more from, does this feel like Tolkien? Like, does this kind of give me a Tolkien vibe? And by that, I don't just mean like fantasy. Does this feel like fantasy or, whatever? It's just more like, is this something that makes me think of Tolkien?
I like that because I remember seeing the Peter Jackson films before I'd read Lord of the Rings in the theaters, or at least seeing Fellowship before I'd read the Lord of the Rings. And I remember it gave me a feeling that, like that what you said, Tolkien vibe, right? Like there is a distinct vibe to Tolkien, Tolkien's works, to Middle Earth, and that, like, honestly, the vibe was what made me want to start doing a podcast on Tolkien in the first place, right? It's like, how do you define that vibe?
Yeah, it's hard to put into words.
Well, it is, and that's why we've gone over 300 episodes and we're still at this, right?
Yes.
And but I think it's interesting because I'm coming out from kind of the hyper nerd point of view, and you're coming at it from you're knowledgeable about you're not like a person who like doesn't know anything about Middle Earth. Like, you're pretty knowledgeable because you've been doing this show for a long time. But you're not necessarily like the person who's going to geek out on every detail and be like, no, that's not how it
Right.
was, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And you're still kind of approaching it maybe as like, is this something that I'd actually watch, you know?
Yeah. And so I think I'm maybe at a little bit more of an advantage than you are. Because I feel like when I've gone and watched movies or what have you, series or something that have been based on books that I've read and truly loved, it impacts. Like you watch it through a different lens, right? And not that I don't love Tolkien. Like I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just not steeped in the details like you are.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can just kind of kick back and be like, yeah, is this something I would choose to watch if I found myself with an hour of free time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we're going to give like, I'm going to give that hyper nerd perspective and you're going to give the perspective of maybe somebody who's knowledgeable, but, but not necessarily as invested in every single detail being exactly correct. Right. And, quite honestly, Amazon there's a lot more people like you out there. And even like, even people who like don't know the first thing about Middle Earth, or maybe remember seeing the movies and, a couple of times, but that's all. Right. And I think Amazon wants to capture that audience, right? Like they need to get the vast majority of people, of whom the hyper nerds are not the vast majority of people. But anyway, so that's good. So we kind of established our starting perspectives here.
I think we'll balance each other out pretty well. So
let's just talk about the details of the episode then.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of into the opening sequence. I thought it was really cool to see like little kid Galadriel and Finrod and the Blessed Realm, and I wasn't quite I think they're doing a good job with well, let me come back to Galadriel. Finrod. I will say from the outset, like all of the male elves so far, I'm not really digging the vibe of how they portray them, like how they like the hairstyles and everything, and like anyway, like I'm just not how I pictured these elves. Like
at least
Finrod,
they don't have beards.
Yeah. True, right? But I was just wondering to myself, okay, I kind of like this opening sequence, but who is this little elf twerp who is messing with Galadriel's ship? Right? And because you just wanted to slap whoever that was, right? And I joked when we were watching it last night. I was like, come on, Feanor, stop it. But I was like, but that's not Feanor. It's like, and I hope that's not Feanor, because Feanor would be too, Feanor would be like, wouldn't be a kid at the same time as Galadriel, because it's a generation before. So I was thinking it probably is one of the sons of Feanor, right? Maybe I was thinking maybe Curufin, right? Because Curufin is one of the worst of them, and that would be really interesting because maybe because Curufin is the father of Celebrimbor, who is introduced in the episode briefly, and will obviously play a major role because he's the guy that creates the Rings of Power. Right. So, but it actually could be Celebrimbor as well. It's actually possible it's Celebrimbor, so we'll have to wait and see how that comes back around. I figured we're going to find out who that was eventually, clearly. But yeah, it just little elf twerp. I figure that's not a one-off thing, and that's kind of a little stage setting for something that's going to be developed later. Like Galadriel is going to meet him again later on and be like, "You're that jerk that messed up my ship back in the blessed realm."
That was a cool ship too.
Yeah, it was.
It was a really cool ship.
So, and I kind of liked the narration, and like to me, it was like that was something like that was a I guess is trope the right term that Peter Jackson established with his films, which I thought worked exceedingly well for all of the films he did. And whether the films were actually good or not, they were at like the opening sequence kind of thing, the little prologue that he did for all of them. I still remember Fellowship, like that pulled me in immediately, the one for Fellowship. And honestly, I would have enjoyed that being longer for this first episode of the Rings of Power. I do think they missed an opportunity to reference Beren and Luthien and the Silmarils. That would have been cool when they talked about the death of Finrod. Because they made it seem like Finrod died in that battle, but that's not actually what happens to him in the lore. And I believe, I'm guessing the battle, if they had a battle in mind, I'm guessing they were trying to portray the Battle of Sudden Flame, because that's the only one that would really make sense. I don't know if that's what they had in mind, or if they were just kind of like, let's just show a generic battle from the first age that Finrod was in. So anyway, pause there, Greta. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that kind of the whole opening sequence portion?
Yeah, I liked the opening sequence. I thought it was very intriguing. Like, it really did. You kind of were like, oh, what's going on? And I think it drew you in. And I didn't even realize that was Finrod, because I couldn't remember Galadriel's brother's name. And I also don't remember how Finrod died. So I'm not winning, but so again, I'm just coming at it from like a very like maybe superficial stance here. But
you remember how he dies, right?
I don't
think about it.
I know you mentioned Beren and Luthien.
He dies in the story of Beren and Luthien.
Yeah, but which like?
And remember, he's the one that has the Battle of Song with Sauron.
That's right. That was Finrod.
Yeah.
Okay, I get all the F names confused. Okay. Yes. No, that would have been cool. Although I also kind of understand why they didn't reference, because I feel like that would have just, it could have very easily turned into a rabbit trail. That was maybe not their intent to really.
Yeah,
you can't just like mention them and then be like, okay, moving on.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think I was just thinking like some kind of an illusion, right? Like,
Okay. Well, they do mention Beren and Luthien later in the episode.
Well, they allude to them, right?
They allude to
because
them,
they talk
right.
about the
elf and man.
Yeah, elf-man union.
Yes.
Of which there have only been two. So, and that's part of the reason I thought they missed an opportunity there, was because they could have referenced that and
then brought it back up later. That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But now, in general, I thought it was well done. Mm-hmm. And the scenery was gorgeous. Like, absolutely gorgeous. Like, I love how they did the trees. I thought that was really lovely.
I liked the little part where they, we saw the dragon, like, and the eagle battling in the air. I thought that was pretty cool. And in the battle sequence. And then, I was hoping we'd at least get like some little, like, maybe not a full body glimpse, but some little glimpse of Ungoliant, right? I thought that would have been really cool.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
doing her worst to the two trees, but alas, we did not get that.
No.
Did not get that.
But they did portray the trees in a very pretty way, I think. I thought it was very, very good.
It was nice. It was nice.
And I guess we were wrong. I was thinking about that. That was a shot we got early on, right? Of the person looking over Valinor. It actually wasn't Galadriel.
A year ago. That's the image that's the image I was referring to earlier, and we all thought it was Galadriel, but it turns out it was Finrod.
It was Finrod.
Yeah. Finrod.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So wait, I'll ask real quick. The battle you're talking about, like when the battle scene.
The Finrod is in, right? Like when he's like looking like he's like, things are going poorly. You can tell by the look on his face. Right?
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying now. That makes sense. I'd forgotten about that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So jumping ahead, so this is just more of a general comment of the first episode. I was very confused by the timeline, and I'm thinking probably we'll get some clarity on it. But I'm kind of thinking to myself, will there even be one? Because again, like there is a timeline outlined for the second age in here and how all these events take place. And I guess I had thought that, that they were just going to have this take place at the end of the second age, and it's kind of like just trying to compress all this stuff in there. But man, they're making it sound like it's like only been like maybe 100 years since Morgoth was defeated, and it's like we had to hunt down Sauron for the last, like I was just getting these sorts of vibes, and I'm like, you're going to compress it into like that short a period of time? Really? This was more of just an impression that I had, but even like the Arondir, right? The elf, the south elf, and his reference to like being on the job for something like
79 years.
79 years.
Yeah. That I was like, really? Only 79?
Yeah. I was like, oh, you're a young elf.
Yeah.
You're a young elf.
Yeah.
But that matters because the timeline matters because, I mean, Elrond should be 35, almost 3,500 years old at the end of the Second Age. But he sure seemed to be, like, the idea was that he was still pretty young, right? And yeah, this is where it's coming into play. Is it's kind of muddling up the lore, I feel like, and muddling up, a lot of these different aspects. And the thing for Tolkien was like, he just was not. He was all about the details. And he was all about the details for a reason. You gotta know you're on fairy stories to kind of understand where he was coming from with this. But he also spoke about it in later letters. And the whole thing for him is enchantment versus suspension of disbelief. And I found myself having to suspend disbelief a lot more in the episode as I watched it. Whereas enchantment, you're just like, it's so well done. It's so, like, the details are so well executed that
feels so real.
It just feels real,
Yeah.
right? It feels like an actual history.
When is this supposed to be taking place?
Well, that's the question. That's what I'm trying to figure
So
out.
we don't know.
We
really.
know. I mean, we know it's supposed to be the Second Age.
Second Age, and that's it. Okay.
But again, like, we're talking about a 3,500 year period in the Second Age, and I believe we're going to see, Our Father's Own, the last king of Numenor, is a major part of this series, and he's like at the end, like he's in the late part of the Second Age, right? The very last part of the Second Age. So, that's, of course, we don't see him yet because they didn't show up. Nothing about Numenor in the first episode, which I was like, what? Really? Nothing about Numenor in the first episode? I assume we're going to get something in the second episode, but I was kind of like, that seems odd to me. Because to me, the Second Age is about Numenor.
Yeah. We got a lot about Valinor, though.
Well, we did. We got a fair amount about Valinor. Yeah, we got a fair amount about Valinor. And that's all right. I mean, Valinor does play a significant role as kind of being a place that exists off screen in much of the Second Age, in my opinion, right? But yeah, so like, all indications to me are that it's supposed to take place at the end of the Second Age, but then we have Celebrimbor introduced, and Celebrimbor dies like 2,000 years before that, right? In the timeline, so you can kind of see where, like, why I'm hung up on this, and I can understand why people who aren't familiar with the lore aren't hung up on this.
Yeah.
But for me and for many Tolkien fans who really get into this stuff, it's jarring. It's jarring. It makes it difficult to say, like, okay, job well done, like, you're doing a good job. And I quite honestly, like, I would love to be able to do that. I would love to be able to say, job well done, guys. Y'all really did it. Y'all nailed it. But I think I've told you a couple of times, my probably starting letter grade for this, based on the timeline compression, knowing they were going to do that. I mean, at best, I was like, maybe a C, maybe a C plus or a B minus if they really execute well otherwise, right? But yeah, so yeah, I'm very confused by the timeline. The Sauron logo, I was like, okay, what? I was like, I didn't recognize it or anything like that. I don't know if there's something I'm supposed to recognize there, or if it's supposed to be something I look at. But to me, again, like, it was one of these things where I didn't, like, having no knowledge of any reference to that logo in anything that Tolkien created or Tolkien wrote. It felt a little like, because Tolkien did make stuff like that. He made, like, little emblems and, kind of added those flourishes to his work. And so when they started making reference to this Sauron logo, I was kind of like, okay, that doesn't look like, I don't recognize that at all. And quite honestly, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like something Tolkien would have made. I could, who knows? I mean, that's just complete conjecture, but it didn't have, even that little logo didn't have a Tolkienian feel to me for some reason. But anyway, any thoughts about that? Or that's fine. It was kind of a minor detail in the episode, but but it was just something like, I was kind of like, I don't know about that.
It may just be a way to kind of help people recognize the good from the evil.
Yeah.
And, especially those people that are new to the world. It might just be a way to distinguish good from bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was just like, oh, okay.
It would have been hilarious if they just made it the Amazon logo instead. But they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do
All right. The forward waste sequence. So this is the icy, the northern waste sequence.
I
go ahead.
I thought it looked like when she was climbing up, like it just looked so unrealistic and cheesy. Like I was just like, I don't know. It was just something about the way that whole scene was done that it was like she didn't look real. The scenery didn't look real. Like it was, I was not a fan of that particular section of the show.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the with that part so much. It was Galadriel gonna whoop this snow troll all by herself, right? Like, you go, girl, you go, right?
She's Galadriel. You don't think she can do it? Come on.
I just thought it was like completely over the top, right? Like she just whooped it. And there was like it was like all the other elves were like, oh, we're not capable of this. And then Galadriel just comes along and it's like, wabap, you ain't nothing, right? And it,
I think she actually said that. I think she said wabap.
Yeah, she said, wabap, you ain't nothing.
Yeah, you ain't nothing. And then she was like, tail shot.
And then the other elves are all like, nah, we done with you, Galadriel, right? Like they're like,
yeah, they just abandoned her.
Yeah,
that was messed up.
That whole sequence did not work for me. That was just completely like okay, I'm gonna have a lot more to say about Galadriel, because my thing with Galadriel all along the way has been like, okay, let's just wait and see what happens, because and I'd catch flack from both sides on this one, okay? I am the via media when it comes to like strong warrior like Galadriel, because there are in fact things Tolkien said, especially later in his life, where it makes it clear that he was kind of like that Galadriel was just still a work in progress in his mind, and actually he was pretty okay with her being a strong, like, very capable, like even with regard to the elf males who were great warriors, right? That she was kind of like on par with them in a lot of ways, right? But that doesn't necessarily, in terms of like just her strength and everything like that, but that doesn't mean necessarily that that she was Commander Galadriel, right? Like, I don't know that those words appear together anywhere in any of the works. I think there may be one reference that I've heard of, but I'm not even sure about that. So I just think I think it's a case of Galadriel. They took this character Galadriel, who's already well known, and I can kind of understand why they did it. And I wouldn't have a problem with Galadriel being a major character in this show by any means, but I think they are taking some little things that Tolkien said and turning them into like the emphasis on the emphasis points on her character, as opposed to other things that were much more true about her, right? The first big one being that where is Celeborn, right?
Yeah,
her husband and all.
So okay, well, I guess that again is the question of when is it supposed to be taking place.
Was she going to say goodbye to Celeborn before she went off to the Blessed Realm? I mean, were they going to like say like, or was he on there with her and just didn't decide to jump in the water with her? Like, because they were married at this point.
So they were. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
You and I were just reading chapter 24, right, of the Silmarillion.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the first age. And it literally says, like, and his wife Galadriel.
You're right. It does, yeah.
At the end of the first age.
So, yeah, here they should be married. She just seems very young to be married.
Well, I mean,
the way they're portraying her. Like, it seems completely legit to me that she would not be married.
Maybe that's part of the problem with the portrayal. I think the actress is great. I think the actress does a good job. I really, I like the actress. that's portraying her. But yeah, just not feeling. I think they're off base. I think they're off track with how they're portraying Galadriel here, and that's very disappointing. That's very disappointing to me.
Can you be more specific, like, about your concerns? Because I know that we talk like.
I just don't think she's Commander Galadriel. Like, I think that's not true. I don't think that's what Tolkien wanted.
He didn't mention, though, at some point. I feel like we talked about this at some point, that that it opened the door for her to be more of a warrior type.
There are references in his later writings to to her being like a very capable athlete.
Okay.
And there is in the Rings of Power in the Third Age in the Silmarillion, I don't have it right in front of me, but there is a reference to Galadriel being very strong, right? Like one of the strongest, or was it mightiest, fairest and mightiest of the elves of that remained, right, in Middle Earth. And but those are very vague terms, right? I mean either of those words can be taken in a number of ways. And mightiest, you can be mighty. I mean, without being like the commander, right? And like the warrior ninja who takes down a snow troll like it's nothing, right? You can be mighty in other ways, and I just don't know that this is what Tolkien intended. I really don't think it's what Tolkien intended.
You're saying they're taking it too far.
I think they're emphasizing like this idea because it's a it's kind of the thing. It's all the rage that they want to do in Hollywood these days, which is take females and make them on par with males in terms of their like physical capability, in terms of their like warrior nature and all these kinds of things, right? And I think they're doing something that Tolkien wouldn't have wanted with that particular character. So I'm probably going to get some hate for saying that. I don't care. But that's just how I feel, and I don't think the case is there that Tolkien would have wanted it that way.
That's fair. I'm kind of a sucker for strong female leads, so I really didn't have a problem with it.
I'm a sucker for strong female leads too. I really am, and I think Tolkien was, but I don't think, again, like you understand what I'm distinguishing between, because I
maybe I don't actually.
Okay, well, Commander Galadriel.
Okay, what
take Commander off of there. Just that's the simple way of understanding it, right? I don't think that Tolkien was like, she's this like General Galadriel. Like, I don't think that's what he had in mind.
Okay, that's interesting, because I didn't get. Are you talking about the snow troll thing or what? Because I really didn't get I got a warrior vibe from her. I didn't really get like a commander vibe. Like she was not leading a huge.
She's called Commander Galadriel in the episode.
Is she?
Yes.
Really?
They call her Commander Galadriel in the episode.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Okay. I thought you were just using that as like an adjective.
And I also don't think like that. Honestly, I don't think Galadriel is just going to take down. I don't think any elf is going to take down a snow troll like that, right? And I don't think Galadriel is either, right? I think that makes snow trolls look pretty pathetic, quite honestly.
Are they
a
thing? Even snow trolls?
Sure. I don't know. I don't think they're actually like something that
so
Tolkien
it's basically
mentioned,
a troll that like lives in the Arctic or
yeah.
Okay.
In the northern frozen tundra. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So it's like a Yeti.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just thought it was silly, like the scene where she's just like, just whooping this thing. And
unrealistic.
I think they are turning her into a character that is not how I'm not expressing myself well on this, but basically I'm just saying like they're emphasizing one aspect that Tolkien said that was kind of a minor thing to the detriment of other aspects of who this character was.
Gotcha.
So
she seems.
I will probably do, once I've seen more of the show, I will probably do a standalone video. So subscribe to the channel. I will probably do a standalone video on Galadriel and whether they get her right, because I don't know, maybe they'll change some things as they go along, but that's my reaction in episode 1 to seeing her.
She seems very driven by like the death of Finrod. Like that is what is is driving her to you know, to seek out evil and kill it and everything. And, you know, at one point she tells Elrond, she's like, you haven't seen what I've seen. Mm-hmm. Right. Which I kind of thought that was kind of a cool thing. 'Cause it like made me think of the, you know, that where she does the looking thing with Frodo, the water.
Oh, not the Palantir, but yes, the Galadriel's.
Yeah, her seeing pool or
right.
whatever it was. So I thought that was kind of cool. But you know, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she develops. And you know, she did seem like, I felt like, it's funny. You kind of, you know, go focus on the commander thing. Me, I'm looking at her as like this rebellious, like, kid basically, who is just kind of like, it's her against authority, and you know, like nobody else sees what she's seen, and so she has to kind of, it's all on her shoulders to take care of it. Which, you know, it's fine. I feel like, again, I'll just have to see.
Yeah, I don't no, I mean, she's definitely called Commander Galadriel within the
I believe
episode,
you. I just
as if she's like, you know, this like leader of this particular elven army or whatever, elven band. And I mean, because that's the whole reason they're like rewarded together, that they get to go back to the Blessed Realm. And I think there are things that, like, there's certain parts of it that are fine, but like even the thing of like just being so like driven by revenge over Finrod's death. If this is truly the end of the Second Age, that's another timeline issue in my mind, because it's like, this is 3,500 years on, at least, from Finrod's death. And but again, like, I'm just like, you know, are you gonna say goodbye to Celeborn? Like, you're not married to him? Because pretty sure you were married to him at the end of the First Age, and he's still around in the Lord of the Rings. So what's going on there? What's going on there? And if you're not married to him, then where is Arwen going to come from? Because Arwen is the daughter of Elrond and the daughter of Galadriel and Celeborn, right? So if they're never married, then like there's no Arwen, right? So you can see how these things will be problematic. So anyway, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about Galadriel. I don't want to get go too much further on that right now. I kind of established where I'm coming from with those issues. Love Galadriel, amazing character, and I just wish they'd get her right. You know, I wish they wouldn't like do the trendy Hollywood thing that they want to do with it, and would just like say like, okay, who was this character to Tolkien? Who was this character, right?
They don't have a whole lot to go on though, right?
They had enough to not screw it up. Yeah, they had enough to not screw it up.
All right. It'll be interesting to see what the rest of the season holds with regards to her.
So, how old is Elrond at this point? I got to say, Gil-galad and Elrond both felt lame to me.
I did not like Gil-galad, like, at all. He just seemed like he just seemed like such a politician. Yeah, like just a, you know, like towing the party line and whatever. And
in Lord of the Rings, Sam has like a song he sings about Gil-galad, and it's this legendary like warrior king and everything. And you know, and that just made me think when he said he's a politician, like Sam starts singing this song about this legendary bland politician, you know.
Yeah, not so much.
I mean, okay, so to be fair, Gil-galad probably develops as a character, and he does play, you know, so I'm sure we'll see more from him, and he'll probably get cooler as the series goes on. Yeah. With all these things, look, we're looking at it we're looking at it from the beginning. And so there has to be the question of like you're setting the stage. Characters are going to develop over the course of this thing, so I'm taking all that with a grain of salt.
And I think that's good. I think that's appropriate. This is a question I asked you last night when we were watching it. Like, did Gil-galad have like the right to reward them Valinor? Like, was that his place? Because I felt like that should have come from a Valar.
I was like, I was definitely beard scratching a lot on that one. Because I was kind of like, I don't think so, but maybe.
Okay.
But even with that, I was like, good job, guys. Get to go back to Valinor. Ding! Like, there was just no, like, I felt like that was something overall, like I felt like the gravitas. Mm-hmm. The gravitas was low.
It was.
Of a lot of aspects of the episode.
Yeah. And it, like, completely doesn't even take into consideration the fact that they left, like, willingly left, mm-hmm. right? So why would you want to go back to a place that you left on purpose?
Well, but remember, so we just read chapter 24 of the Silmarillion. And,
right, they do make peace. Well, like, I understand that.
Well, they make peace, and they basically tell all the elves they can come back, and Galadriel refuses it at the end of the first age, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. But again, we're talking about the end of the second age, and so maybe this was a new opportunity, and maybe Gil-galad did. I'd have to go back and research that. I did not have time to kind of dig into that question between now and then. It was one that popped into my mind. But yeah, it just felt very like, good job, killed a snow troll, went to the north, sounds good. You get to go back to Valinor now. You know, it just felt very like, really?
Yeah.
Like, that's all she had to do? Like,
yeah.
It just felt a little like that it didn't have this, it just didn't carry enough weight, you know?
I will say, though, speaking of weight, the scene where they're heading, like, when they're on the boat and they're drawing close to the mm-hmm. Blessed Realm, I thought that was really well done. Mm. I thought that was really, like, you could feel, like, how special and important this place was, just based on all of their reactions and the music and, like how it was just the filming of it all. It just, I could tell, like, oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all right. It was pretty good.
Of course, Galadriel then, you know, jumps ship.
Oh, yeah.
Into the Sundering Seas. If I were to jump into a body of water, it would not be the Sundering Seas.
She's just like, nope, I'll take jumping into an open sea and fending for myself rather than Valinor.
And she's been on the boat for a long time. Like, she's really far from Middle-earth at this point.
I mean, that was just like, she's going to jump into the ocean in the middle of the ocean and everything will work out, I guess.
We were watching it last night.
I'm Galadriel. Everything's going to work out. You see what I did that snow troll? Man.
I can do anything. No, I was like in and out of like sleep last night when we were watching it, and I woke up like basically just as Galadriel was jumping off the boat, and I looked at John and I was like, did she just jump ship? Like,
I know.
I know I was asleep and I probably missed something, but she jumped ship. Like, and there's nothing around. Like, okay. Let's see.
Cool.
We'll see. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. I think it's also storming or raining or something, so it's not like it's a nice day.
I don't think it was rain. I think it was pretty nice weather because
but there was like water hitting their faces.
Maybe.
It was. And it was like really gray.
Okay. I was just like, what is going on? She's jumping into the ocean in the middle of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. She must be a good swimmer.
I mean, like I said,
she's not Teleri though, is she? She's Noldor.
No, she's she's half Teleri.
Oh, well then she'll be fine.
Yeah,
she'll be fine. Yeah, okay. I'm not worried about that anymore.
Her mama's Teleri.
Okay, well she's good.
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
She brought some paper with her, and she's gonna make herself a little boat. Sorry. All right. So, yeah, that scene was absurd to me. The jumping into the ocean.
Well, they had to get her off the boat, John.
Well,
they had to, because this show is not going to take place in Valinor, and she's clearly the main character.
Yeah. All right.
What are you going to do?
Moving on.
Okay, moving on.
So, other issues. Yeah, I already mentioned no Numenor at all in this episode. I guess it's going to show up in the second episode, but I hope so. That to me. Okay, people, this episode gave me strong episode 7 vibes. Like reminded me of how I felt when I watched episode 7 of Star Wars.
Oh,
The Force Awakens.
I was like, episode 7 of
Greta's
what?
not a Star Wars person, so she doesn't, that didn't mean anything to her.
No.
But it was kind of like,
I'm like episode 7 of Lost, episode 7 of
and it probably
Americans,
kind of feeds into why I felt the way I did about this show going into it. Like episode 7 just and the Star Wars sequel trilogy just burned me so bad, and I remember being so hopeful going into episode 7 even on the day it came out, and then just being kind of like Luke Skywalker, who you've been waiting 30 years to see, shows up at you're finally like, okay, there he is, do something cool now, and it's just like, nope, gonna have to wait till the next movie. And that's kind of how it felt with not seeing Numenor in this episode. Is it's kind of like, you're not going to say anything about Numenor here.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't have to wait. That obviously we could have watched the next episode right away. It was getting late for us.
And I was already asleep.
You just lamed out on me.
I did.
No Numenor at all in episode 1, and that was a little weird. But anyway, I know we'll see lots of Numenor. So okay. The episode just seemed rushed overall. It just didn't breathe. It didn't give me the Tolkien vibe of the epicness, the spreading out. I did think the map thing going back and forth was kind of cool, and I liked the way that kind of narrated the different scene, like where they were.
Mm-hmm.
But even like the comet or whatever it was, the asteroid man at the end, like going through the sky, it's like first you have Gil-galad seeing it, and this is like, this is all the way across a continent. And he's like seeing it right there, the same way that the people in that the Harfoots see it, right before it lands, right? And that to me is like a failure of like how you're portraying the size of this world, right? And the vastness of the area that you're referring to, which is another thing that I was very disappointed with by episode 7 of Star Wars. I feel like they made a lot of just miscalculations on how they did stuff like that. Like to me, that's like like when you do a visual story like this, you've got the budget, you've got like those are the kinds of questions that you should be able to get right.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things you should be able to get right. You should be able to use the visual trickery that's at your disposal to communicate this world is like, we're talking about vast distances here between these two places. Mm-hmm. Now maybe this is just because we got off a road trip recently where we saw all these like vast areas, and everything. But yeah, I just felt like the pacing felt a little rushed, and and it just didn't breathe easy in all the ways that I felt like Tolkien, like Middle Earth should. Mm-hmm. I know that's a vague criticism, but that's, to me, that's part of the Tolkienian vibe, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't talk about really anything besides Galadriel, and I just want to say that I actually am pleasantly surprised by the portrayal of the Harfoots. I actually really enjoyed that.
I did actually like the Harfoots. I agree with you. I liked the Harfoots.
Yeah, I really liked the Harfoots. Like they were probably my favorite, and I love
I remember
the way
you making fun of them previously too in some of the trailers.
I kind of was. But yeah, I just love the way they portrayed their way of life and the character. Like it seemed very believable. Like it felt very Tolkienian to me. I'm like, oh yeah, this is something that. Well,
the Harfoots for me have been one of those things where I'm kind of like, it's one of those things that Tolkien never, it's obviously not something that was in the lore anywhere.
Right.
The Harfoots are in the lore, but it's not really in this way. But I was kind of like, if Tolkien had written this story, he would have put proto-hobbits in it too.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he knew that hobbits mattered. So if he had gotten his act together and had been like, I'm gonna write the story of how the rings came to be, he would have been like, I need hobbits in this somehow. Yeah. I already said they can't be in here, so what am I gonna do? He'd come up with something else, right? And I could totally see Tolkien doing that, and I was like, I actually kind of liked them. I did, and so yeah.
Yeah, I liked them, and then I thought the Southland, the men of the South, I thought that was fine.
I thought it was fine.
Accurately.
I thought it was a little and it's Arondir, right? Arondir,
the elf,
the warrior elf there in the south. So with him and the human female, the mortal female, right? I mean, I think that's a cool little story. And what's interesting to me is like they reference the past unions of elves and men.
Ending in tragedy.
Now, both of those though are a human or a mortal man and an immortal
right
woman.
And here
right?
It's switched.
Right, and here it's switched. Yeah. And even in the one that comes after with Arwen and Aragorn, it's a mortal man and an immortal woman, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's interesting that they flipped that in this one.
Flipped that. That is interesting. I was gonna you made me realize though that when they referenced that, they said it always ended in twice, and both times it ended in tragedy, in death. And then I was like, well, wait a second, that's not true, because Baron and Luthien, right? Well, I guess that one did end in death, but in the other one, like they chose to he was granted immortality, right? So he actually didn't die.
Yeah.
But I guess in Baron Luthien he did. So anyway.
Yeah. I will say, like, the just kind of taken off so quickly like they did, I feel like that's another thing that just felt rushed to me. It's like, can we get more backstory on them? And like they're, like just things
we might get more like in flashbacks.
We might. And I know with all these things we might get more, but it just makes me all like take a step back with all this stuff and say, okay, you chose to tell the story in a certain way. And that's part of whenever you make something like this, you choose to tell it in a certain way. And that's part of the package with your artistic work. And it affects how people receive it, and it affects the impression it makes upon people. And I think I just feel like having the pacing feel rushed overall in so many different aspects of this show, like, oh, good job with the snow troll, going back to Valinor there, Galadriel. It ends up taking away. It ends up detracting from the Tolkienian vibe.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, but I think it's also a function of what consumers want, right? Like you let it breathe, and they're gonna get bored and be like, it's a delicate balance between letting it breathe too much and keeping it moving.
I recognize that, but I think there's other ways. I think there's other ways to tell the story, and no one tried to hire me to tell it, and I don't know that I could have done any better a job. But yeah, at some point I'm gonna make a video and just say, like, look, this is how I'd have done it, like just kind of at a high level, and say like, because I would have actually told the story of the Second Age as we have it in the books, and no, to one of the guys that is the showrunners, said, when he talked about timeline compression, he's like, I know some fans want us to make a documentary of the Second Age.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't want you to make a documentary. I want you to tell the story of the Second Age.
Yeah.
And like, why is that so hard? Right? Or if it's so hard, then you're not up to the task, and don't do it. Right? Find another story to tell.
Yeah.
Because there would have been a way to do it, and I think there would have been a way to do it that could have been very interesting to viewers, right? That could have drawn a huge audience. And I think at the end of the day, I really feel like they went for mediocrity, and so let's just kind of wrap things up. What would Tolkien think? That's the big question. And I just feel like he would not have been a fan of what we saw in episode 1. Maybe certain aspects. He was fair-minded in his criticisms when he talked with people about adapting his books to film. And he would like certain things that he'd read, and like treatments and screenplays and that kind of thing. But there was just so much that I just don't think he would have been a fan of. And I've tried to hew with my own criticisms towards what I think he would have thought. Right. I just don't think that the attention to detail was there that he wanted, that he often, that he talked about in his criticism of his own work, and his criticism of people adapting his work. I've already said I don't think he would have liked this extreme emphasis on Commander Galadriel, and I know about the references to Galadriel being very strong, capable, athletic, on par with with male elves and that kind of thing. But I think the commander is taking that to an extreme, right? I just don't think that actually exists anywhere in Tolkien's mind or in Middle Earth. you want to show her doing some cool stuff, like doing some ninja moves on a snow troll in isolation, like sure, okay. But even then, it's like that's a pretty weak snow troll if like just one elf can take it down so easily, right? Even if she is super mighty, like you're talking about a snow troll. So, yeah. So overall, we'll see where this goes, but I don't know that Tolkien would have been too happy about this, too pleased with this. At best, for me, this is a pastiche of Tolkien's original writings and Peter Jackson's films. And so pastiche is, it's like where you kind of do something that's sort of based on different styles or based on, an author's past work. So like a classic pastiche would be like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen as a song, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like opera over here and everything like that. And it works on its own right, but in this case, it doesn't work super well for me. It just didn't feel as great an epic as I was hoping at the end of the day. And the timeline compression is going to be a big problem if you care anything about the lore. It's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Greta, what about you?
I'm just trying to keep in mind that this is essentially a pilot, right? Like, it's the first episode. And there's actually a lot of series out there that I think, that I've watched and enjoyed. And I think back to the pilot, and based on the pilot alone, I didn't expect to like it.
Yeah.
Like we've just started rewatching Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And like after watching the pilot episode, I was like, oh, that was kind of boring.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna like this. Same thing with Lost. Like we watched the pilot of Lost with the kids not too long ago, and I was like, oh, this is lame. No wonder the kids don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to keep it in perspective, I guess, and be like, okay, this is just the first episode, and we'll just trying to keep an open mind and be cautiously optimistic, maybe. I think the one thing that was like a little encouraging, maybe for me, was that obviously we talked about me rewatching it this afternoon. And I was going to get up at one point, pause it, get up and go get laundry and come back and fold the laundry while I watched it. But I never did that because I didn't really want to pause it. Like I kind of just wanted to, and at one point I was like almost over and I was like, oh, the laundry. Oh well. So that's a little encouraging to me. Like it did at some point like grip me. And I was like, I want to see what happens. I don't want to go do laundry. Of course, I hate laundry, so that may have factored into it too. But, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think I great comments. And, I don't want to have this attitude of like, well, I'm just going to take my ball and go home, right? I'm going to take my copy of Return of the Appendices and go home. No, I want to be able to just like enjoy the show for what it is at the end of the day, and like just kind of like, all right, based on J.R.R. Tolkien's works, right? Okay, then that's all. That's apparently what they claim, and so the thing here is either temper my expectations or it's just going to be torture to continue to churn out episodes on this show.
I think that's what we need to do. I think we just need to keep our expectations in check.
And that's kind of where I've resolved to do.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are just like, don't watch a moment of it. Don't give Amazon any credit or, encourage them in any way. People are going to be watching it. And, what I want to do is just be able to enjoy it for what it is. But also be able to speak to like, okay, this is what actually happened here. And, when they're doing things that Tolkien wouldn't have liked, like call them out on it. And hopefully maybe, I mean, I don't think these guys care a cent about what I think, but like maybe if enough of us fans are like watching the show and giving the feedback and saying like, hey, you did this wrong. Maybe over the course of the show, they're going to hear that and be like, and course correct, right? And be like, and you know what, maybe if this show is a big success and then they get the rights to do the Silmarillion, they're going to do an awesome job on the Silmarillion later on.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's completely legit.
Or you can just be like, I'm going to take my ball and go home, and then it's all going to suck. Irredeemably so. It's just going to get worse and worse. There's no hope. Right. So, do with that what you will. But yeah, I think I like your perspective on things.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Greta, score for the first episode out of 10. What would you give it?
Out of 10. My first thought when you told me that, gave me the heads up that I needed to be prepared with a number, my very first thought was 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, maybe 6.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go right in the middle. 6.5.
6.5?
6.5 out of 10. Mm-hmm.
I gave it a 4. 4 out of 10.
Okay.
I've kind of laid out a lot of complaints over the course of this. I do, like, again, you said it's a pilot, and I do recognize that, like, pilots are usually, shows get better after the pilot. But for me, like, I was hoping that I would come into this and there would be, like, just an overwhelming feeling of, like, okay, they messed up the timeline, but they got so much other stuff right, and, like, the pacing is really good, and for me, it still needs a good bit of improvement, even beyond the timeline issues that bug me a lot. So, but yeah, we'll be there watching it, and you guys, I love to hear comments about different people's reactions to it. Keep it civil down there, people. Like, if you can't make your criticisms in a civil way, then you just don't bother. Okay, I don't want you commenting. So keep it civil. Let's have a good discussion. You can share strong opinions, but don't attack people, right? And let's have a good time, like, discussing this thing. Let's have a good time discussing this thing as we go on. So let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So hey, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes if you're listening, or on the platform of your choice. If you are a 5-star fan of the Tolkien Road, you can really help us out by heading over to iTunes or your preferred source for the show and dropping us a rating and review. When you do that, it helps get the word out about the Tolkien Road, which helps us to keep on evering on. And hey, again, like, check out our Patreon page if you really like what we had to say, want to hear more from us, then check out our Patreon page. Ooh, thunder!
That was very loud.
Thunder outside the studios we're recording. Head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad, and hey, consider supporting us. We really appreciate any financial support that we receive, and you get cool perks when you do.
Yeah.
And correspondence. Drop us a line elsewhere if you don't want to do the comments. Drop us a line, TolkienRoadPodcast@gmail.com. We're over on Twitter. Comments on our website, TolkienRoad.com. Anywhere you can find us, and we'll do our best to respond in a timely fashion. We can't always promise at this point. We can't promise that we'll always respond, but we do our best, and sometimes we're going to talk about on future episodes what you write us. So, all right. Greta, any final thoughts on this one?
No, I mean, I'm really interested. I'm just interested to see where it goes.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that body that was left.
We didn't really talk
episode.
about the asteroid, the Meteor Man.
The Meteor Man. Yeah.
Who do you think it is? We haven't seen episode 2 yet, so who do you think it is?
I have no idea.
No idea?
No. I mean, I was thinking
Don't you think it's probably a wizard of some kind? Now, I really hope it's not Gandalf, but I do think it's a wizard.
You think it's a wizard?
Yeah.
Maybe. I thought maybe it's a bad guy.
Maybe. Oh, maybe it's a bad guy. Who knows? Maybe it's a bad wizard.
Ooh,
yeah.
Maybe.
All right.
The possibilities are endless.
Yes.
So we'll see.
We will probably find out soon.
Yeah, we will.
All right, y'all. Thanks to our amazing patrons, especially the following: John R.,
Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien,
Jacob Lockham,
John H.,
Scotchy Bobo,
Ms. Anonymous,
Andrew T.,
Redhawk,
Shannon S.,
Brielle O,
Emilio P,
Zeke F,
James A,
James L,
Chris L,
Chuck F,
Asya V,
Ish of the Hammer,
Teresa C,
David of Pints with Jack,
Jonathan D,
Eric B,
Johanna T,
Mike M,
Robert H,
Paul D,
Julia,
Werty,
Matthew W,
JoeBagelMan,
Chris K,
Jacob S,
Don J,
Richard K,
Matt R,
and Garret P,
as well as those celebrating their Patreon anniversary this month in September of 2022, Brielle A,
Dustin, is that Q? Just Dustin Q,
Johanna T,
and Robert S.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
And thanks for watching and listening, y'all. We'll talk at you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.